Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions. Melissa Leifer, thank you so much for joining us for the Mike Litton Experience. As we talked about, everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. So with your permission, we'd like to start at the very beginning of your life and then go all the way through to today, if that's okay.
Sure.
Thank you for joining us. So tell
Thanks for having me.
us where you were born.
So I was born right outside of Boston, Massachusetts, in a small New England town called Wayland.
Okay. Is that where you grew up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where I grew up.
So
both my parents are from New York.
There you go. What was your favorite thing about growing up in Wayland?
That's a good question. It was very beautiful. Like it was a very beautiful, very safe place to grow up.
Was it a smaller town, I take it?
Yeah, it was a small town. There was probably like 10 or 12,000 people. It was very close to Boston, which was great because, we had access to the city, so we could, do stuff.
Right.
But it was nice. It was just a very nice, quiet, very pretty place.
Gotcha. So what were your interests growing up?
I had a lot of stuff. I did a lot of theater. I did a lot of gymnastics. I liked school a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I was involved in like a lot of like student government, clubs, that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. So did you graduate? Did you go to high school in Wayland?
I did.
And you graduated from there.
Yep.
What happened after high school?
So I went to NYU. I went to the Tisch School for Acting, and I was very lucky to get a scholarship. And that's where I was. My plan was to move to New York and be an actor.
So how were you able to earn that scholarship? It is kind of rare, right?
Yeah, it was an academic scholarship.
Awesome. So you were really good in school. You made sure you made your grades, that kind of thing.
Yeah, your way in. Yeah, I did. I had really good grades.
That's cool. So when you were going to Tisch, what was your favorite thing about going to school there?
Oh my God. I mean, I loved the classes.
Yeah.
I love the classes. I mean, and also, you're the subjects. Yeah. And you're in New York City.
That's awesome. So I'm assuming it was a little bit of an adjustment from Wayland to New York City.
It was. It wasn't like complete culture shock. My whole family is from New York, so I was back and forth as a kid. But nonetheless, it's an adjustment. I think anytime you leave home, it's an adjustment.
It must have been a dream come true to go to school there.
Yeah, it really was. It
awesome.
really, really, really was.
So once you leave college, what's next in your life?
So the nice thing about going to school in New York was it wasn't like there wasn't really an adjustment period after college, because it's kind of like, okay, instead of going to classes, you're just going to go to work instead. So that the first year out, I had a bunch of odd jobs, and I did a bunch of like off Broadway shows. I did a lot of voiceovers. I taught yoga. I was a nanny. I worked in an office. Like that only lasted, I think, a week. I waited tables, kind of standard stuff.
Whatever you had to do, right?
Right, exactly.
So how long out, so after you graduated, how long were you in
Mhm.
acting?
I did it for a while, probably like a good 5 to 7 years,
Okay.
and I did it simultaneously as I was doing real estate.
Okay. What made you get into real estate?
That was a total fluke. I had a couple of my students who became my friends, my yoga students, were like, "Oh, you should do real estate." They both did real estate. They're like, "You should do it. You'd be great. We'll get you a job at
Yeah.
this big fancy company." I was like, "Okay, sure." And another friend of mine who was also an actor, she was doing it. She's like, "It's great. I made like $3,000 last weekend." I was like, "Oh my gosh, that sounds so much better than you know making a
Working
couple
for
$100 a
tips
night
and
waiting tables." Right?
right.
Exactly. So I mean, I was so young. I was like 23. I didn't know anything, so I just was like, "All right, sure." I went and got my license, and like that was it.
So you get your license, you get into real estate.
Mhm.
What was your favorite thing getting started in the business?
I think, well, seeing apartments. I loved looking at apartments, and then just realizing that I could do it and that I was good at it
So it
and
wasn't
that I
this
enjoyed it.
insurmountable thing. It was something that
Oh
you
no, this was like, yeah, this was much, much easier than acting. I
correct.
mean, my God, the rejection was like a fraction. It,
Sounds
it
like you were
wasn't
a
like
natural fit for it.
yeah, I mean, it was. I didn't, like with the acting, you go out like auditions and they're just like, thank you. You're not, you're too this, you're too that, you're too whatever. I mean, this was just like, people would tell you right away. You'd be like, well, this is too small. Oh, okay, I can find you something bigger,
Right.
or you know, this is, I want to be somewhere, closer to a subway. Okay, yeah, sure, I can do that. That's
Yeah, all you
easy.
have to do is ask, right?
Right, exactly. And people would tell you,
That's cool.
and it wasn't, talking to strangers and stuff. That wasn't scary or anything for me.
Gotcha.
Um,
So growing up, who was the most influential person to you?
I mean, probably my parents.
Okay.
Other than that, I'd say maybe like Madonna.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So so you grew up as a material girl. No, I'm kidding. So in real estate,
Mhm.
who's been the most influential person to you in real estate?
Oh gosh. Probably my first manager. Um, and then I had a partner for a while. He was really influential. And then just there were a few agents that had really, big businesses. They were really famous.
Mhm.
Those people, and and now my coach.
Right. So how was your first manager influential in your business?
She just showed me what was possible, and that how much you could make, how you could, just the way that she was and how she, lived and just, acted and presented herself. It was
She
like
was an
my
example,
first, exactly.
right?
She was my first example of a businesswoman
And did she coach you
and
and
what that
teach
meant.
you that kind of thing?
Yeah, she did, and um she did, and the partner that I worked with, he really did that quite a bit. But she just watching her every day, and and interacting with clients and other agents, and just watching her run the office, it was really, that was really influential.
Gotcha. So you're with Keller Williams, New York City, Tribeca,
Mhm.
right? Tribeca Real Estate.
No, it's just now just Keller Williams,
Okay, so just Keller Williams. Okay.
just
So
Keller
you're with
Williams.
KW.
Mhm.
What makes you decide to join KW?
Again, again, another fluke. I was Actually, I was not going to join Keller Williams. I was going to join another company.
Mhm.
Um, the previous company that I'd been working at, um, I had met somebody there, and he became the manager of the Keller Williams, the Tribeca office when we had that. And he was like, "Come work for me." was like, well, I think I'm going to go to this other company because my friend is a manager there, and like I'll get a lot of leads. Um, I got hired. However, then as they were processing my paperwork, they realized I was working at this other company, and two very big people left my company to go to the company that I was going to, and that there was a lawsuit
Oh,
because of that. So the new company was like, you know what? We're going to hold off. We're not hiring anyone from your company for the next 6 months because we don't want to get sued, and
yeah,
you're
out of
not a big enough of an agent at that
yeah,
point.
out of legal advice.
Um,
Yeah.
for it to be worth it for us to do it. I was like, okay, then I guess I'm going to Keller Williams.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing how that
And
all kind of comes together
I
in the
know. And
universe, huh?
I figured, I was like, well, I guess I'll just, I'll go to Keller Williams for like 6 months, and then I'll just like go to the other place just as as a place to hang my license, and a placeholder for a little bit. But it turned out I really liked it here. So I
Yeah.
stayed.
So how long have you been with Keller Williams?
I think 7 years,
Wow, that's awesome.
6 or 7.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Congratulations. And obviously,
Thanks.
Brian. Um,
Yes.
Brian is one of my favorite people in the world. And we had an amazing interview the other day. And it was when we were setting all that up before the actual
Hmm.
interview. He used to be on radio in San Diego, and so did I. And
Yeah.
we
Oh, cool.
became good friends, and he's one of my absolute heroes. Um,
Oh,
one of the nicest people you've ever met in your life. You know that. And
yeah.
as
Completely.
we were setting all that up in terms of scheduling, he said, you know something? There's one person that you need to talk to. And I said, really? And he goes, oh yeah, she's amazing. And he wasn't
Oh my
wrong.
gosh.
He wasn't wrong.
Oh, you're so
So
kind.
I really appreciate you doing this. So if somebody's thinking, and I guarantee you there are going to be
Mhm.
people that are going to listen to this podcast. Just so you know, I owned a Keller Williams office for 18 years in San Diego.
Oh, no way. Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
And so I was the owner, broker, operating principal, the whole thing. And it was an amazing experience. I was with Keller Williams for over 20 years, and it was an amazing experience. Life-changing, big time, right? Um, there are going to be people, because of our background, that are going to listen to this, and they're going to be thinking about getting into real estate. They're going to be thinking about making a change. They're going to be thinking about sort of the same things that you were thinking about when your yoga clients said, hey, you
Hmm.
should get into real estate, right? What advice would you give them if they're thinking about getting into real estate?
Well, I guess I probably would have questions first before I gave advice. Um, I'd want to know, like, what's the reason you want to get into real estate, and then
Right.
I
What's
would know what
inspiring
kind of
you?
advice to give.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like I just did it. Like, I mean, I didn't think this would be my career. This was just a way to, you know, support myself so I didn't have to wait tables. And I could be like a little bit more of a grown up.
Well, and you had
Um,
flexibility, right, with your schedule, so then you could
yeah,
continue acting
exactly.
and that kind
So
of thing, right?
exactly, like it was right, exactly. So it worked out really, really well. Um, it's I would say you just take anything that you get. Don't say no. Um, and you just like listen, if you work, you can do it. You can make really, really good money.
And have a career for the rest of
Yeah.
your life, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. With like, where you call all the shots and where you're in control, and you get to decide when and who you want to work with.
Yeah. It's interesting how people come to this business the way that they do,
Yeah, I
right?
know.
That just
Hmm.
fascinates me because, like you said, for you, you felt like it was a fluke, right?
Yeah,
I've talked
completely.
to other people that absolutely are convinced that it's God's plan. They're absolutely convinced that, they wanted this and this happened, right? And
Yeah.
so it just it's amazing how it all kind of falls in place. So let's talk about your real estate practice in New York.
Mhm.
So what's working in this current market, right? What's working in terms of real estate, and what should people that are listening to this that are looking for advice, what should they potentially avoid?
Um, Well, I mean, what's so we're a little different here in New York than the rest of the country.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Um, you know, I would say if you're like if you're in New York and you can afford to buy now, you should. That
Mhm.
would be my advice because you can get a good deal. And I think when the rates drop, um, I think it's just going to be like complete insanity. I think the prices here are going to go way, way up, you know, and sure, you'll get a lower rate, but at the end of the day, you're going to spend like $200,000 more
Right.
because of supply and demand. There's going to be so much demand. Right now, there's like a little bit more. It's a little bit more of a buyer's market, not like completely, but it's much more balanced here because we have such low inventory. You
Right.
know, but you know you're going to get generally a better quality of apartment. You know, I think there's just more opportunity right now, and you know I think you know if you can take advantage of it, you should. And if you know you don't need a mortgage, then like great. But if you can afford to buy now, you should because I don't foresee prices here coming down. I think they're just going to go up.
Yeah, I don't
And
either.
statistically, I mean, that's what happens. They just go up. Like they've come down already. So we're there, you know. There's a couple things, you know, that have been on the market for a while that there's probably some good negotiability with that you can get that, you know, by this time next year, I don't think that we're going to be having that conversation.
I think that's a
So
great point. You mind if we dig into that just a little bit?
yeah, sure.
So, a couple of years ago, when interest rates were lower, quite a bit lower, right down in the
Yeah.
threes and the fours,
Yeah.
it was very, very difficult to negotiate price. It was very difficult to negotiate terms. It was very
Yeah.
difficult to even get a place. I mean, there were
Exactly.
a lot of these places had 50,
Exactly.
60 offers, right?
Oh my God, exactly. I had
And
a client, I showed them like, I mean, we had like 7 contracts out and
yeah,
they kept losing them because
yeah.
somebody would come in and waive their financing contingency or offer more money.
They
That's,
also
I mean,
waive
that's a lot.
appraisal. They also waive their appraisal contingency, right? And
Mhm.
they
Yep.
waive their
Yep.
inspection contingency. I mean, it's crazy.
Hmm.
It's crazy. People were pinning their ears back and shooting for the moon,
Yep.
right?
And
And
overpaying.
they're not doing that right now. And
No.
that's why I think, and I agree with you, I think this is a great time for people to buy. Somebody asked me the other day in an interview when we would know we've hit the bottom of the market. The answer is because of the data, we won't know for 6 months after.
Exactly. Like we know when we're already on the up.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I think that we're starting already here. I mean, the fall has been busy so
Yeah.
far. It has. I think people here have now adjusted and they're like, okay, yep, these are the rates. This is the market. This is what it is. A lot of the prices here have already adjusted.
Yeah.
Um,
Every single buyer that we've talked to, and we've talked to a bunch of them, every single buyer is telling not only us, but they're telling their agents that interest rates are coming down. They're literally predicting themselves that interest rates are going to drop. And so they're getting in while they can right now because they're going to just basically end up refinancing, right?
right, exactly. Exactly.
So it's
Exactly.
I agree with you. I feel like this is the best time for people to buy simply because
Yeah.
of the terms they can negotiate. You know, you're not
Right.
necessarily going to have that much room on price, but you can negotiate terms like there's no tomorrow with a lot of these
Right.
sellers.
There's exactly like there's
Yeah,
just other stuff that you can get and you know, it's not going to be this crazy feeding frenzy of competition. Um, which is, you know, that's nice. And I think that once the rates come down,
yeah. Everybody's
I just think it's going to be a bloodbath. You know, it's
yeah.
going to
It's
be
kind of
worse than
like
it was during COVID.
it's kind of like what Warren
It'll
Buffett
be just
said,
like that.
right? When everybody's greedy, you want to be conservative. When everybody's
Yeah.
conservative, you want to be greedy.
Mhm.
He also
Right.
said, I don't know what the American people are going to do, but I know they're all going to do it at the same time in the same direction.
Kind of. Yeah. Yeah.
That's true.
Yep.
So thank you so much for joining us, Melissa. Is there
Oh,
anything
my
else
pleasure.
to talk about?
Um, I mean, like, I don't know. I feel like I'm like missing something. You tell me. I mean, listen, New York City's great. It's a great place to buy.
Yeah.
It's a great place to invest in. Everybody should come here.
Well, let's talk about this. Let me ask you
Okay.
this. If you were listening to this podcast and
Mhm.
you're in Singapore or you're
Mhm.
in Malaysia, wherever, okay, and you decide and you want to live in New York, New York's like
Mhm.
your goal, okay? Where is the best place in New York to live?
Ooh, well, it depends. It depends. It
Right.
depends on what you want.
Right.
And it depends on like what kind of lifestyle you want too. Um, the neighborhoods are so vastly different. Um, and then now we have Brooklyn, which wasn't really a thing, like not like how it is now 10 years
Right.
ago. So that's
Right.
like a whole other, it just depends on what you want. If you want to live in like a cute, cozy apartment with a lot of character, like, the Village is great, or Park
Mhm.
Slope in Brooklyn. If you want um, a full service building, that's very accessible. You've got Midtown, but you've got the Upper East. If you
Mhm.
want a full service building with character, you've got the Upper West and the Upper East. And then there's various parts of Brooklyn as well. If you want a townhouse, I mean, then it just depends on really like budget and lifestyle.
Are people buying closer to where they work, or are they post-COVID? Are they more about the house because they're going to be working more remotely?
Yeah, so I would say it depends. It depends on budget,
Yeah,
really. Um, people with people with a higher budget, or people who are looking for townhouses, are they're okay with a longer commute. Um, if people are looking for a pied a terre, then they want to be location's very important.
right.
Um, I mean, people generally, I would say on average, want like about a 30 to 45-minute commute. So, that's a pretty big swath of the city.
Gotcha. Define pied
Um,
a terre for me, just for
so
our
sure, a
listeners.
pied a terre
Yeah,
it is a part-time residence.
right. So
It's just a fancy word for a second home, a
like a
vacation
vacation
home.
home kind of thing.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Gotcha. I just want to make sure that our
Yeah,
listeners,
it's just
right? Because we don't, everybody's gonna have access to this. Okay. And I
great.
don't know if you've listened to any of our previous podcasts, but the first interview we did for our young podcast, that our podcast is now just over 3 weeks old. The first interview we did was with Alan Nevin, who is one of the top economists in the nation. And in fact, I would recommend a book to you that he wrote it was published back in 2017, called The Great Divide. And
Mm,
Alan wrote this book about we're in the midst of the single greatest transfer of wealth in our nation's history.
yeah.
There's some $72 trillion with a T being transferred from baby boomers to their millennial kids and
Mm-hmm.
kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I interviewed Alan the other day, as like I said, as the first podcast interview we did for our podcast. And one of the things that he mentioned was he wrote that book, which absolutely changed my life. I mean, it completely changed the way I looked at real estate, because now that transfer is happening, real estate is becoming disposable,
Mm,
because the generation that's receiving this inheritance or this transfer are millennial kids and grandkids. And these millennial kids and grandkids have PTSD from the Great Recession, right? When they were children, they
mm,
were watching people lose their houses that were close to them. And so
mm,
all of a sudden now they have a different view of real estate than we ever have. Okay. And so basically the conversation that I was having with Alan was basically the beginning, if you will, of the iBuyer need, because it turned real estate into a disposable item.
mm,
And now he's written a new book that's coming out in October called The Next Half Century. What's interesting about that is, in the last few years, over 1 billion people worldwide have gained internet access. In
mm.
the next few years, another billion will gain internet access. So things like YouTube and podcasts and all that kind of thing are going to be hotter than ever, because they're going to have access to those through the internet. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
they're going to see through YouTube and other channels, they're going to see what life is like in New York City, and they're going to want to be a part of it.
I hope so.
So they need to look you up. So
Yes, they
I
do.
really, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Is there anything else?
Thank you.
Cover? Anything you feel like we're missing?
No, I mean, I don't think so.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to get to meet you and to hear your life story. I know you're going to inspire and motivate people. I promise you.
Oh,
And I really, really could not thank you more. Melissa,
my
thank you so
pleasure.
much. Have a good day today. Okay.
Thank you. You too.
Appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.